Today we're looking at BenQ's Mobius EX2710, which is a premium 144Hz 1080p IPS monitor. The Mobius comes in two sizes, the EX2710, which is 27 inches, and the EX2510, which is 25 inches. Today we're going to look at what a $280 1080p monitor can do, and if it's worth your consideration for color-accurate high refresh rate gaming. The Mobius is packed with nifty features from all around, but before anything I want to admire the aesthetic. I absolutely love the borderless design with the frame towards the bottom. It's a very modern look and it's catching on to a lot of monitors. The stand also suits the minimal aesthetic without taking up too much of a footprint. I also admire the cable channel and the stand that gets hidden by the monitor at certain heights. The back of the monitor looks good as well with no flashy RGB, not that it really matters since it's the rear of the monitor, but it all seems to fit a nice theme. The only thing that stands out here is the orange strip on the base. I think it would be better without it, and the HDRi button could be a bit more subtle. Anyways, for a monitor marketed for gaming, this seems pretty mature and I admire it quite a bit. Now let's dive into some specs. Like I mentioned earlier, this is a 27-inch monitor and it has FreeSync Premium, which works with AMD and NVIDIA cards. We've got VESA support in the back, and the stand that it comes with is quite adequate with height, swivel, and tilt functionality, but very little rotating adjustment, which is a bit of a bummer. We've got two HDMI 2.0 ports, one display port that's at 1.2, and a headphone jack. Some other features include a 1 millisecond moving picture response time and a 2 millisecond gray-to-gray response time, HDRi light tuning, speakers designed by Trivolo, 1001 contrast ratio, which is okay, but I won't bore you to death with the spec sheet. I just want to get these things out there that I think matter. So the marketing boasts a lot of information that is on the edge of sensory overload, but a lot of marketing is like that anyways. First, I want to get into some of its core functionality, starting with the menu control. On the back of the monitor, there's a joystick for menu navigation, which is probably my favorite and most intuitive form of UI usability, in my opinion, for a monitor. You can set up different color settings to best suit you and what your preferences are. This is fine. The implementation reminds me of using a filter of some sort, and then you can go into the settings to fine-tune those filters of sorts. The nice part is that it's all easy to change these settings without digging around too much. The big thing in the marketing material is HDRi, which uses the sensor towards the bottom of the monitor and it adjusts your settings based on the ambient light in the room. I actually use this feature for setting color temperature and brightness on my daily monitor, which is also from BenQ. The HDR features are emulated here, and as nice as it sounds, it doesn't make as much of a difference using the other color presets like HDR, FPS, and Cinema. Since it's all emulated, it's okay at best. It adjusts some things, and even when turning off the studio lights, there is very little noticeable adjustment going on that I can notice. That's not to say they don't look good in their own right, but I wouldn't find myself heavily using it, and I would find myself in the light tuner options or adjusting some of those color presets like we were talking about earlier. The viewing angles are pretty good on this monitor, as it should be for an IPS panel. There's also very little backlight bleed, with only a little around the corners, but for the most part, it gives a really nice black level or night viewing experience. Another thing that's heavily marketed with this monitor are those Trivolo speakers. So here's a sound test to hear what they sound like. Now, there's three different audio modes, and I thought the Cinema mode sounded the best. I was taken a bit by surprise, actually, that they sound pretty decent for a monitor and could be a decent stand-in in case you're waiting on going all out on your audio setup or you have nothing else to use. For monitor speakers, they're not bad. However, I wouldn't use these over a dedicated audio source. The last thing I wanted to talk about is the gray-to-gray response time. Now, I don't have the right testing tools to conduct proper testing, but after taking a look into Hardware Unboxed review, they mentioned AMA, which is an override setting for lowering response time. The monitor defaults to AMA 1 and goes all the way up to 3 and starts at 0 initially, so you can turn AMA off. The consensus was that AMA 1 showed the best response response time around 4.7 milliseconds for gray to gray and little to no overshoot. However, going up the AMA settings would increase overshoot by quite a bit. I wanted to mention this so that in case you decide on getting this monitor, keep it on AMA 1 to get the best response time throughout the refresh rate range and keep your color accuracy without any overshoot. At $280, does this monitor command this price? Well, there are certainly better value options for 1080p IPS 144Hz gaming monitors, but this monitor is arguably a better monitor than those value options. Whether or not you think it warrants the price increase, that's up to you, but most IPS 144Hz 1080p panels cost around $180 to $220, with some costing up and over $300. I believe this asks for a fair price considering the accuracy, response time while maintaining color accuracy and panel color performance. It's not a pro color accurate display with a 98% sRGB coverage, but it's certainly fine for most consumers and gives you a ton of flexibility for color options while gaming depending on the type of game you're playing. It does a little bit of everything and does it well with some extra features that can come in really handy, which you may or may not value. But at its core, it's a solid performance for a more premium 1080p IPS monitor. And if you'd like a more in-depth video, I'd highly suggest watching Hardware Unboxed review on this model, and they go a lot more into depth, where I'm just giving you my objective opinion on my viewing experience. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. If you want to see more videos like this one, consider checking out the rest of the channel and subscribing.